Hi, I'm Kaylee, and these are all the books that I read in November, especially for the Nonfiction November Readathon. I had a really great reading month in November. I read a ton of nonfiction, which is just not characteristic of me to read quite that much nonfiction. But I read a lot of other stuff as well. I read a total of 26 books in November. I read 14 nonfiction, 3 picture books, 3 middle grade, 4 classic middle grade books, so like classic children's books, and I read 2 classic adventure books. Please do subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up if you love nonfiction. And of course, follow me on Goodreads and Instagram and all the places. So as always, we will first start out with the classics, because I know that's all you guys really care about anyway. So I listened to an audiobook of A Tale of Two Cities. This is part of my goal to reread a bunch of my favorite classics and discover, are they still my favorites? And Tale of Two Cities is definitely still a favorite. I just adore Dickens forever. I've already done a separate video all about my thoughts about Tale of Two Cities, so be sure to go over there and watch that video as well. I also listened to an audiobook of A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Unfortunately, in November, I spent about 2 weeks sick with COVID. It wasn't too bad. It was fairly mild, but I mean, I was still pretty miserable. And whenever I'm sick, I either read The Secret Garden or The Wind in the Willows or A Little Princess. Those are like my go-tos when I'm sick. I don't know what it is about those stories, but there's just something so nostalgic about my childhood, and I just find it very comforting to revisit these favorite stories. So while I was lying in bed, I listened to the audiobook of A Little Princess and really enjoyed revisiting this one. It's just such a favorite story. I also finished reading the last book in the Richard Hannay series. I listened to an audiobook for this one as well. So this is kind of almost like a spin-off, because Richard Hannay is not a main character in this story. He's just kind of a side character. He sort of introduces the story, and then off we go with his friend, Sandy Arbuthnot. Arbuthnot, yeah. So Sandy is in South America, and he gets embroiled in this revolution in this small South American country. I have just loved the entire Richard Hannay series. It's just fantastic espionage and intrigue and adventure. And this last book was really good as well. I did kind of miss the main character, Richard Hannay, but Sandy was also a good main character as well. Lots of twists and turns, just a wonderful, exciting adventure. I gave that one 4 stars. I also listened to audiobooks of the first 3 books in the 5 Little Peppers series. So the first one, of course, is 5 Little Peppers and How They Grew. That one was a reread for me. I had already read that years and years ago, but had forgotten most of the plot. And when I decided I wanted to read further in the series, I was like, well, I better go back and read that first book again, just so I can remember who everybody is. And then I went on and listened to the audiobooks of 5 Little Peppers Midway and 5 Little Peppers Grown Up. So the 5 children in the Pepper family have grown up very poor in the little brown house, and they make friends with Jasper, who is very rich. The 2 families start an unlikely friendship, leading to opportunities for the Pepper family. This is just a really sweet and wholesome series. I'm not going to tell you anything about books 2 and 3 because that would just be spoilers. But the writing is charming. The stories are just simple but interesting. They just have all these fun little small adventures in their home. You know, somebody gets sick and they're worried about how to pay for the doctor, or it's Christmas time, and so they have all these little preparations that they do, just small little things, little decorations that they make, and they're worried about, oh, what are we gonna do for presents, you know, so they try to make something to be for a present. It's just adorable. I love stuff like this. So I really enjoyed the 3 books in the 5 Little Peppers. There's a lot more books in the series that kind of go back and take place at the same time as the first book, or kind of in between the first and second books, or stuff like that. So if you read them in publication order, then you sort of go back and you get to hear more about what happened to them in between and stuff. So I'm looking forward to reading some more of those. I think those will be really fun. One of my goals for this year was to read one J.R.R. Tolkien or C.S. Lewis related book every month. So I actually started one of those in October, but I didn't finish it until November. That was Understanding the Lord of the Rings, the Best of Tolkien Criticism. I've already done another video all about this amazing collection of essays all about Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. So be sure to go over and watch that video if you're interested in Tolkien. And I also read J.R.R. Tolkien, A Life Inspired by Wyatt North. So this is a biography that follows J.R.R. Tolkien's life from his childhood to his death. There are a lot of little details from his life that shaped his personality, memories from childhood that shaped his writing, and of course special people in his life who greatly influenced him. This is a short book that would serve as a good introduction to Tolkien's life. However, because I've already read several biographies of Tolkien, I didn't really learn anything new. One of the highlights of any Tolkien biography is his romance with his wife, Edith. Their forbidden romance was the inspiration for the tale of Beren and Luthien. And I did like that the overall focus of the book is Tolkien's faith in God and how his Christian faith then trickled into his writing. The book is well written. It's obviously very well researched. So if you wanted to read a biography of Tolkien, but you just didn't want some big, huge, long book, this is a short book that would give you a really good overview. The rest of the books in this video are books that I received from the publisher in exchange for a free and honest review. I read 3 books from Bruce Wilson Jr. I read The Ocean Blue, A History of Maritime Trade, Naval Warfare, and Exploration. I read Gazing at the Night Sky, 5,000 Years of Humanity's Quest to Find Our Place in the Universe. And I read One Day at a Time, 365 Innovations, Discoveries, and Triumphs in World History. I really enjoyed all 3 of these. They just give you these little snippets of history and interesting little anecdotes and things. I love history, and it was just really cool to see like all these weird facts or strange things that had happened in history. And it really helps you to appreciate how far humanity has come over the centuries and millennia. I especially liked Gazing at the Night Sky because you get to see, how people have discovered planets and just made sense of the solar system and the universe and used mathematics and science and telescopes and Galileo and Isaac Newton and all the good stuff. It was just really, really cool to learn so much about the stars. The Ocean Blue was also really, really good because you get to see how different cultures have developed around seafaring and exploration, trading and connecting and everything through the ocean. I gave each of these books 4 stars. I read Interior Design 101, A Beginner's Guide to Transforming Your Home. So if you wanted to decorate your home and you just had no idea where to start, this would be a great book to give you some tips and some pointers and just kind of make sense of why is it that when you see a picture of a home in a magazine, wow, it just looks so good, it looks so coherent and everything just looks amazing. Why is that? And then you try to recreate that. It's like, wow, this looks terrible. This book helps you make sense of why do certain elements or furniture or paint color or whatever it is, why do these things work together? And then figure out how to do that for your own home so you can express your personality and be intentional with the way that you decorate. I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. I read Mastering American History in 1 Minute a Day by Dan Roberts. So with just little 1-page snippets, you can learn all about American history from Christopher Columbus all the way to President Biden. I really enjoyed the beginning of this book, like the first half, I guess. Learning about the American Revolution and the Civil War and the Industrial Revolution and just all these amazing people through history who made our country what it is. However, the recent history had a definite political bias in a certain direction. The facts just seemed to me like they were kind of skewed in a particular way. And that is not a historian's job. The historian's job is just to give you the bare facts and leave it up to the reader to decide how to interpret those. Some of it just sounded like political propaganda that I've heard. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. If you're gonna write a book about history, you need to just stick to the history. I read The Phone Book, Stay Safe, Be Smart, Make the World Better with the Powerful Device in Your Hand. So this is a guide for young teens who are getting their first smartphone and how to just Be smart with your phone usage. This book gives teens the tools and the wisdom to navigate the online world with kindness and grace. This book has sections about cyberbullying and spotting fake news and tech addiction and staying away from dangerous strangers online. I really liked this book. It's very engaging. The design is really excellent, just keeps your attention. There are like activities and cool graphics. There's even like a little quiz that you can take. There are secret codes and weird facts and just all kind of neat stuff to really capture your attention. I gave this 5 stars. I really liked just the true wisdom in this book. I read The Big Book of Mysteries. There are some mysteries that just can never be explained, and there are others that have a simple explanation. Some of these mysteries have been proven to be a hoax, and some of them are still unsolved. Like, where is Amelia Earhart? Who built Stonehenge? Are the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot real? Are there really aliens making crop circles? There are sections about missing persons and ancient civilizations and codes and ciphers that have never been cracked and a dozen other things. The only section that I didn't like was about spirits and ghosts. That was a little too creepy for me, and so I just skipped it. I was like, I do not need to know all this creepy stuff. I really loved the illustrations on each page, and I gave this book 4 stars. I read Astonishing and Extinct Professions, 89 Jobs You Will Never Do. So some jobs have just gone extinct over the years. Princes don't need a whipping boy to take their punishments anymore. Grand estates just don't find it fashionable anymore to hire an ornamental hermit to live in a cave grotto. And most people in most cultures around the world do their own crying at funerals instead of hiring wailing women to cry for them. Now that most people can read the news in a newspaper or online or whatever, but most people can read, so we don't need balladeers or town criers to tell us the news. I found this really fascinating to read about all the weird professions that have existed in different cultures throughout history. However, some of these jobs haven't truly gone extinct. They have just developed into a new version of the same basic job. Or it might be the same job, but it's just very rare for anyone to have that job. So, I mean, there are still butlers and housekeepers and cooks. There are still sponge divers. There just aren't that many of them. There are still paper boys. There are still milliners. And there are still tower watchmen who look out for fires. There are still elevator operators, but there just aren't that many. So I felt like, almost like they were cheating on some of these. Like, that job isn't extinct. It's just rare. So, I don't know. There were a few places where there was definitely a bias against Christianity. There was a whole section about itinerant preachers. There were some mentions of the teachings of Martin Luther, and just, they got everything wrong. I don't know. There were a few other places where it seemed like the history was biased in a certain direction. That just really annoyed me. So I ended up giving this book 2 stars, unfortunately. Like, it seemed really fun, but where's the proof? And, you know, when you're doing a history book, it should just be about the facts and not about some way that you want to skew the facts in some certain direction. So yeah, that one was kind of a disappointment. I read How Do You Share With Your Friends, a math book about fractions, decimals, and percents, and How Do Scientists Ask Questions, a book about the scientific method. I really love this children's science series. I've read several other books in this series, and they're just really fun. The illustrations are really great, and just lots of wonderful scientific, information in there. I read Insectopia, The Wonderful World of Insects, and I promptly gave the book to my nieces because they love bugs. I kind of skimmed through it and just read about the pretty insects like the butterflies and the moths and a little bit about ants and stuff, but I just didn't want to read about all the beetles and everything. However, there is a large section about the evolution of insects and millions of years, this and that, but it doesn't make it clear that that is a theory. We don't know that how old the Earth is. We can't prove it. We don't know how evolution might have worked. We can't prove that because that's a theory. And yet this book talks about it as if it were fact, instead of one of many theories about the origin of life. So that really annoyed me. Like, if you're going to be a scientist, make sure that you are clear about what is fact and what is theory. And it makes me not trust anything they say, because if they're going to misrepresent that, then what else are they misrepresenting? I don't know. So for that reason, I gave it 3 stars. The illustrations are really beautiful, and I feel like it does have good information about insects, but I just wish that scientists would be clear about what is fact and what is theory, and it just really annoys me. I read How the 7 Wonders of the World Were Built. Now this book covers the 7 wonders that were chosen by the New 7 Wonders Foundation in Switzerland. So this includes temples and pyramids and tombs and statues and the Great Wall of China. And it just tells how these structures were built and why they were built, and a little bit about the culture that built them. I loved the illustrations in this one. This one is really, really cool. I just love all the little snippets of history, and I gave this one 4 stars. I read Melody Queen, the 2nd book in the Bollywood Academy series. I have completely fallen in love with Bollywood Academy. I loved the 1st book, but I really loved this 2nd book. The 1st book, the main character was obsessed with dancing, and I'm a terrible dancer, but I related to her passion for her art. But now in this 2nd book, the main character wants to be a musician. And so, of course, I absolutely adored this character because I am a musician. The thing is, both of her parents want her to study acting as a career. They feel like that's more of a stable career, that she could get jobs acting. But her true passion is for composing and arranging music. However, the music industry in Bollywood is completely dominated by male composers, and it would be very difficult for a female composer to find a job. Not even her teachers at the academy think that it would be feasible for a girl to break into such a difficult field. She doesn't want to let her parents down, and so she just decides to do acting as a career, even though her heart really isn't in it. But is that truly the right decision? The best part of this book for me was learning more about the rich Indian culture and about Bollywood. I especially liked how the main character has a really complicated relationship with her mother, and so we get to see that relationship kind of grow and change. And I really like that she has this inner journey to find confidence in herself. The character development is just so incredible. I just loved this one so much. I cannot wait for the next Bollywood Academy book. I am completely hooked on this series. I also read what I think is just a duology for now, is Daring Darleen, Queen of the Screen, and V is for Victorine. Darleen is the star of silent films that are produced by her family's film company just outside New York City. As part of a publicity stunt, they set up a fake kidnapping to bring more attention to their films. But something goes terribly wrong, and Darleen is trapped in the middle of a real kidnapping, together with a wealthy heiress, Victorine Berryman. Now the 2 girls must discover who ordered for them to be kidnapped, and of course they have to plot a daring escape. I loved both of these wonderful adventure stories. I'm not going to really tell you anything about the 2nd book because that would be spoilers for the 1st book. Suffice it to say that in the 2nd book, the characters are off for adventures in California, where Hollywood is just beginning to be established as a new center for making silent films. In both of these adventures, the plot takes a lot of twists and turns. There's lots of action and mystery. There are a lot of complex layers to the story as we follow Darleen's family and their production company. And then Victorine has all these legal struggles with her guardian. And then, of course, there's the bad guys and the mystery and the adventure on top of that as well. These characters just have a lot going on. I really loved the hilarious writing style. It just captures this flavor of old-fashioned drama like you think of in silent films. One of the coolest things about both of these books was being able to learn a little bit about history and about the silent film industry of that era. Several of the side characters in both books are actual real historic figures. We meet the first woman to own and run her own production company. But I especially love our two main characters, Darleen and Victorine. They have a lot of great character development, and I love this friendship, just this sisterhood that develops between the two of them. These stories have it all. They have the adventure, the characters, the writing, the plot, all of it. I gave the first book 5 stars, and the second book I gave 4 stars. And those are all the books that I read in November. Please leave me a comment and let me know what was one of your favorite books that you read in November, or let me know what was a really interesting nonfiction book that you read for Nonfiction November. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.